Okay. Alrighty. Well, welcome to Kindness Lab once again. I wanted to start this evening just by saying thank you to each of you, Dan, Miley, Angela, for being here once again, for practicing together. I can't tell you how valuable it is to me that you keep coming back. It gives us a chance to go relatively deep. And it's also just incredibly gratifying to know that you're interested in coming back more than once. I really appreciate that. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take up our meditation positions, but not get too cozy just yet. We're going to start with a little exercise here, and we're going to rub our hands together very vigorously until they get warm, and then we're going to put the balls of our hands right up into the eye sockets, right? And so the way this works is to rub them until you can feel that they're really, really warm, vigorous, and then put your hands up over your eyes, and then bring all your attention into your eyes, the muscles around your eyes, your face. And just notice the receiving of that heat, the receiving of that darkness, the receiving of that comfort. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. So we rub them together very vigorously. Bring your hands to your eyes. And now see if it's possible to feel in both directions. So feel your hands giving darkness, giving warmth, giving comfort and care. And then allow the sensations to meld and merge, so that you're both giving and receiving at the same time. Very good. Okay. And next we'll bring a hand to our heart. It can be either hand. And feel into this. Feel into your heart, your chest, receiving the warmth, the contact, possibly the comfort, the value. So that in this way, we are actively giving, actively receiving. You might think of this as a closed circuit, or you might think of it as a microcosm or an isomorph of a bigger process in which we are always both giving and receiving. Now, if you keep your hand here for a little while, you're very likely to notice that it gets quite a lot warmer. Very good. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and bring your hands into your regular meditation posture. You're quite welcome to keep your hand on your heart or bring your hand up to your heart at any point in the meditation. Sorry, that all reminded me that I'm quite warm here. Okay, and then bring your attention into your posture. Allow yourself to simultaneously settle into your meditation posture and to elongate up through the spine, to find balance. And bring your attention into the lower half of your body. And particularly any place that your body is making contact with a cushion, with the floor. This is going to be something of visualization in the broad sense of the term. It's okay to entertain ideas here, to inflate them, to magnify them. Consider the contact points wherever your feet are touching. They may be touching each other, they may be touching the floor. And notice that as the weight of your body pushes down, there is something pushing back up. That you are constantly and continually lifted up, supported. You may wish to take a moment to visualize or emotionalize that this support holding your feet up, this sensation of your feet meeting the floor, that this is actually a transfer of energy, a transfer of unconditional kindness, transfer of support and being supported. A contact point, a meeting between you and world, whereby you are completely, totally, and constantly integrated, part of. And then check to see if there are other physical sensations in your feet. This could be warmth or cool. You may have awareness of air, of weight, solidity. And see if it is possible for each of these sensations to come to you, not only as information, but as indication of boundless generosity. And we can do the same thing with the backs of our legs. Any place where we feel contact with our cushion. Anywhere the solidity of our body is supported, is raised. Anywhere there is pressure or contact. See if there's room, if there's possibility to experience that contact Experience that bodily sensation as evidence. As kindness. Good. Now, without moving your hands or your arms, with your imagination, you can bring one hand to the back of your head, and in a move that is not physically possible, but possible in your imagination, you have one hand behind your head, and then stand behind yourself and run the palm of your hand all the way up the full length of your spine, elongating, bringing yourself into perfect balance, perfect alignment. And find a point on the top of your skull. For men, this would be where we go bald first. So back from the center of it. And bring this crown of your skull straight up. Incline toward the ceiling, toward the sky, toward the moon and stars. And notice that everything that happens with you happens between this point on the top of your head and points at the very tips of your toes. Whole sum of your being, physically, takes place within these two spaces. Now note if there are any sensations that come to you unbidden. These may be postural. These may be other sensations in your legs or hands. And see if there's room to take any of these sensations and to receive them as unconditional love. Particularly if there is any part of your experience that you find a little challenging. Perhaps a sensation, perhaps a thought or a feeling. And see if there's room to hold that sensation with kindness, with tenderness. Good. Now bring your attention to your eyes once again. And allow them to become completely soft, completely open, completely unconstricted. And begin to practice with the idea that each time we release, each time we relax, we are in fact giving ourselves a tremendous gift. There are so many things that we do because we have to. But each time we release, relax, we do that because we get to. Now take a moment to take in the whole span of your body and consider yourself as gazing upon yourself. Any vantage point is okay. You may feel the shape and size of your body. You may experience something that happens primarily in your visual sense, where you see a version of yourself sitting quietly. But take in the whole of your being now, and allow this to include thoughts and feelings. And allow this image of you to sit against a background, whatever is behind you or around you as you meditate. This could be the room you're in. It could be simply whatever fills the space behind the image of you you have behind your eyelids. This image may shift and change. Let's see if it's possible to come into contact with everything that is that image. The feelings, the thoughts, the sensations. And allow that contact to feed you, to sustain you, to support you. There is a version of this story in which you are already a completely enlightened and realized being. The direct experience of your body is completely consistent with that story. Take a moment to ask, how would you sit? How would you be in this exact moment if you were already there, as you already are here? Good. Now bring your attention to your breath. If you are feeling drifty or sleepy in any way, you are welcome to deepen the in-breath. And with each in-breath, we will recite the phrases of classic loving-kindness meditation. You can recite the phrases as phrases. You can also allow your in-breath to simply take in the substance that the phrase refers to. So on the in-breath, may I be safe. And for the next several breaths, simply breathe deeply of safety. And allow safety and goodness to suffuse every cell, every part of your being. May I be happy. And you can repeat the phrase and allow each deep in-breath to draw in happiness. And let happiness sink and nestle in all the way to the bottoms of your lungs. Past that to your belly, legs and feet. May I be happy. May I be healthy. Allow the clear, fresh air entering in through your nose, to make contact with every part, every cell in your head, your neck, your shoulders, your chest and upper back. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. So with each in-breath, allow yourself to receive comfort and grace. Simple confidence. Good. Now take a moment to imagine a benefactor, a recipient of your well wishes. This can be another person. This can be a pet. This could be a child. This could be some non-human entity for whom your relationship is relatively simple. Someone for whom you can easily and happily give everything. It can be particularly useful to visualize a younger version of yourself, you as a baby, you as a child. And for each deep in-breath, on the out-breath, may you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy and strong, physically capable, mentally at ease. May you be the beneficiary of all goodness. May you live with ease. May your circumstances be perfectly good. May your responses to circumstances be born out of your values and your integrity. May you live with ease. Good. Now bring your attention down into your chest. This can be the area just below your shoulders, inside your rib cage. Muscles on either side of your ribs. Your belly. Your lower back. Your kidney area. Middle back and upper back. Bring the full attention to this core of your body, the central space. And bring your attention into your breathing as it manifests in this area. And then, if at all possible, bring your center of awareness, your center of consciousness, down into this space. If you're not clear how to do that, simply draw all attention into your chest. And then consider that in this meditation, right here, right now, there are 3 other beings just like you. And beyond this small circle, many countless other beings just like you. Beings who long for safety and happiness, for health and ease. Each of them, the beneficiary of your kindness. May we, all of us, be safe. May we be happy. May we be healthy. And may we all live with ease. Good. Now allow yourself to choose one or two or several, or perhaps all of these beings. And with the in-breath, draw in the goodness that they would wish for you on the in-breath. And allow all that goodness to flow right back out on the out-breath. And if there's room to do it, draw them all in a little closer. And allow yourself to glow like a fire, like a light bulb, so that with each out-breath, your emanation of kindness, of well-wishing, of benevolent concern grows brighter. And with each in-breath, each heart comes a little closer. That the kindness and compassion becomes brighter and stronger, even as your own kindness and compassion grow brighter and stronger. And now, let all these points of light, these hearts, these beings, come together so that with each in-breath, we are all suffused with goodness, with kindness, with love. May each and every one of us, all together, be safe. May we be happy. May we be healthy. May we live with ease. Continue to breathe deeply, allowing your awareness to fall where it may, perhaps with the breath, perhaps also with this sense of emanating goodness, receiving joy and love. And radiating back outward, so that with each breath we are giving and receiving without boundary. So if you find that this spaciousness is working for you, then by all means continue. If you find that there is any sense of urgency, fatigue, any kind of physical or mental impulse, and particularly if there is anything that you feel that you may be judging, whether it be inside or outside, take a moment to bring a very pointed, but very, very gentle and soft intention of kindness to that phenomena. If there is anything, particularly about yourself or your experience, that you find difficult, see if there's room to hold that experience with comfort and kindness. See if there's room to hold you in comfort and kindness as the being that is having that experience. And then see if there is any part of your experience that you can release and relax even further. Has any sort of tension crept in? Any kind of aversion risen? Any kind of desire made itself apparent to you? And see if it's possible to hold any of those experiences with great tender compassion. Good. And now consider this reflection. Is there some part of your being that isn't quite the way you want it? This could be your body, part of your body. This could be your behavior, a repeated behavior, a tendency, perhaps something that you did recently that you wish you had not. Is there any part of what someone might call your character that you have judged as wanting? And is there any way to take this unlovable, this unacceptable aspect and love it? Any way to hold this as dear and as close as everything else, so that no part of the entire picture is omitted or excluded? Now, having included that which was difficult to include, is it possible to completely release and relax, to let go? No more doing metta. No more doing anything. But simply resting in your innate and divine Buddha nature. Simply being. Very good. In a moment, I will ring the bell. And take this opportunity to notice with fine detail what happens, how the sound lands for you, and how you respond to the change of mode. What falls away, what comes together. Okay. Are there any reports or questions? We can come back to this later if you like. So, quick little review. Last week we talked about the wheel of samsara and the 12 nidanas, or the causal agents, the things that cause other things to happen. And we saw that in this wheel, each piece of the wheel is considered a causative agent for something else. And at the same time, this is called the cycle of dependent origination. And so that each thing within the wheel is also shaped and defined by every other thing in the wheel. And we can look at this wheel of samsara in a way as the kind of a summary teaching that encapsulates the entire span of what the Buddha was actually after, what he was trying to do. And there are accounts that refer to the Buddha as the great healer or the great physician. And we could say that he was fairly well obsessed in his lifetime with this understanding of what suffering is and what causes suffering. So he started with suffering and he worked backwards. And he came back around with the rather dismal conclusion that the whole thing was cyclical, that it was interdependent, and that it may or may not have a way in or a way out. So that's the diagnosis. And then the treatment for this condition, this human difficulty that we have, came to emphasize the nidanas in particular, although they are all important. But this place, Vedana, was given particular prominence. It's the second foundation of mindfulness, and it shows up in other ways as this very specific place where, although the fact of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral is essentially involuntary, that we can become aware of it and we can adjust our relationship to it. So the way that this normally plays out is the sensation arises. There is a very fleeting and minuscule impulse, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And then we have the reaction to that, the tanha, or craving. And we can collapse that just to say a sense of dissatisfaction. Something's happening, and I either want to push it away or I want to pull it toward me. But whatever it is, I'm not happy with it. I'm not completely content that this thing is existing. Or we completely ignore it. And then the next phase in the wheel is upadana. And this is clinging, also known as attachment. And we can think of this as a very strange kind of fusing in which our consciousness becomes fused with the object of consciousness. We have a thing and we desire it, or we feel aversion to it, but the whole thing becomes this kind of solid mass that is held together by our desire and our aversion. And from that place, and from having that very almost microscopic experience happen over and over and over again, we come into this then bifurcated sense of being that is essentially controlled by desire and aversion, right? We're not really talking about desire and aversion on the macro scale, although that telescopes as well. But we're talking about being driven, being controlled in how we perceive the world as a me that has experience, positive or negative, with an object. And so the whole sum of duality comes into play through this process. And while dependent arising gives us suffering, there is also the solution, the cure, part of which can be thought of as dependent fading. Right? So that if we become relaxed, we release, we stop clamping down against Vedana and against our reaction to Vedana, that this simply happens. It becomes like this little jiggle, this little vibration. You clamp down on the vibration, you can't stop it, And so you start to generate heat, you start to generate suffering, you start to generate difficulty, you start to generate self. But if you can release and relax and soften your relationship with what happens, and this again happens in a telescopic way, if you can be at ease with what is happening, you still have the ability to maneuver through the mundane world. You can still be you, you can still do the things you want to do, the things that you need to do, but you aren't quite as driven by this sense of friction, this sense of heat, this sense of alienation, this sense of inadequacy, this sort of pestering anxiety that comes again and again. So, the classic teaching is of 12 nidanas, and then all the teachings that pour out of each one of those 12 segments. For the purposes of this class, for right now, dependent fading can be thought of, and the whole cycle of dependent origination can be collapsed down into just 3 parts. Okay? There is constriction, there is self, and there is suffering. And it's very, very simple at that level. If there is constriction, there's going to be more self, there's going to be more suffering. Okay? Where there is less constriction, there is less self, there is less suffering. And this is not an all or nothing proposition. I would be very, very wary of absolutes here. We tend to key into this idea of enlightenment, this becoming a perfect being. But this is a process that is non-linear. It happens in some sits. Doesn't happen every sit, every time. But there are ways in which we attenuate the self. The self fades. Clinging and suffering fade at the same time. So I thought I'd come up with a big elaborate example. Probably the only time you'll hear this in a meditation class, but I want you to consider your to-do list. And not necessarily the to-do list that you actually have, but a to-do list. This is a list of things that you gotta do, and in this sort of idealized form, consider writing down a list of things that you need to go out and do. So you're going to head out into the world. You're going to go to the grocery store, perhaps for groceries, and the post office to drop off a letter, hardware store, for whatever reason. Here, and here are the places you've got to go. And each one of those places has stuff that you need to do when you get there. Excuse me. And now go ahead and visualize yourself either stepping out your front door and walking someplace, or hopping into a vehicle of some sort and going. Perhaps you've got a car, perhaps you do public transportation, but you're going to take your list and you're going to go out into the world and you're going to fulfill everything that you gave yourself to do. So this is a completely normal thing to do. This is completely mundane and average. This is how we live most of the time. The to-do list, or the shopping list, is an extension of the self. This is one of the ways we make the self bigger. And we extend the self forward in time through our imagination. And we write down all these things we have to do, we have to get, have to solve. And then we become one with the list. For the next hour or several hours, we will actually become manifestation of that moment. We will become manifestation of that list. Right? We will put our time and energy into acquiring the things or the experiences that we set out to acquire. Very often this kind of list is about physical objects that we will acquire, right? So, what happens to your consciousness when you actually do this? What happens to your consciousness when you head to the mall, when you head to the grocery store? There is this tremendous caving in, this tunnel effect, right? We become very, very tunnel vision. And we move from spot to spot. We move from where we are here to where we're going. We're on the move. There is an object out there someplace, and we close the distance between it. And you can actually imagine mapping this. It would look like this crazy zigzag through space and time where we are more or less constantly bouncing from object to object to object. But the movement and the shrinking of consciousness is consistent. We're effectively moving through a tunnel. And as we progress on through that tunnel, everything becomes an object. So the cars on the road become objects, the people on the bus become objects, and to some extent, everything other than the thing on your list is an obstacle. The bus may be a vehicle that gets you from point A to B, but it's also in the way. It's a thing you gotta do to get to the thing you gotta do. So take just a moment to consider what it feels like when you're out in the world doing this. What does this do to your anxiety level when you're scurrying around, taking care of business? And then consider the fact that many of us, one way or another, have an endless to-do list. Somehow, the digitization of our interactions, the ability to do this exact trip completely online without making contact with anyone else, has produced a lifestyle where we now have an infinite number of things to do. There was a day when the sun went down, and if you didn't have a candle, you didn't have any way to do anything. You had to stop. So that obviously had its own challenges, but one of the things that we face in our time, in our era, in the way we live, is this ever-receding goalpost, this constant falling away, this inadequacy, this inability to complete our to-do list. And so we find ourselves in this long tunnel that just keeps going and going. So, that's a little grim, but consider the exact same to-do list. If your very first priority is to practice metta along the way, your second priority is to expand the tunnel. Okay, how are you going to do that? And the first thing is to consider, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Is the acquisition of items really the goal here? So take just a moment to visualize that you have made a slightly different decision set now, knowing that your to-do list includes doing metta and expanding, coming out of this tunnel vision. And I'll display my own sort of prejudicial thinking in this respect, but we're not going to go all over town this time. We're just going to go to the grocery store. We're going to go to the local wet market or the farmer's market, or someplace where we already know there's going to be a certain amount of satisfaction just being there, right? And allow yourself to come into contact with whatever it is that you see in the grocery store or the wet market or the farmer's market. And there's good stuff there. There are people moving around. There are fresh fruits and vegetables. And in this second iteration of the to-do list, the shopping trip, we're going to say that we have prioritized giving and receiving loving kindness, opening up the tunnel vision. And we're not going to put any kind of boundary on how that happens. We're going to receive love and benefit and support through all 6 sense doors. Okay? And the way we're going to do that is we're going to pause. We're going to stop when we get there. And we're really going to stop. We're going to allow a little more time to do a little less stuff. And when we land, wherever we're heading first, we're going to just take it in. Take in the whole landscape, take in all the people, all the sights, all the smells, and hold that position until it happens. And how crazy is that? How weird will that be to be the person who is standing quite still at the market? And having done it a few times, I can suggest that no one notices. No one cares. It's totally okay. And then approach whatever it is. Food stall. Somebody selling you something over a cash register. A ripe bunch of carrots. Not sure if carrots get ripe. Something good. Take it in. Really take a chance to take it in. Let that nourish you. Let it feed your whole being. How does this thing smell? How does it feel? Where's the heft in this, right? Where's the life in this? And take a moment to just consider the possibility that that is completely supporting you, completely sustaining you, even if you don't buy it, even if you don't eat it. That there is a benevolence, there is a goodness just in the fact that it exists. There is benevolence and goodness just in this point of contact, right? It's a very different trip than the one where we dart around in our car and get angry at the other motorists, right? But go ahead and take that setting. You're in your car. You're trying to get from A to B. And everybody is doing exactly the stuff that they always do because they're also trying to get from A to B. And your A to B and their A to B are not lined up. So, can you give yourself a complete and open acceptance that this is where it is right now? This is where you are. This is how you are. And knowing that, can you then just look over to the person next to you? Doesn't have to be a big deal. And can you grant them that exact same thing? Because you want it and they want it. And the difference is that when you're doing it, when you're giving it to someone else or you're giving it to yourself, it's happening for you. They may or may not ever know you were there. When we do long practice of metta, or there have been studies that fairly conclusively demonstrate that when individuals or groups pray for someone else, that there is this tiny, but noticeable blip in the statistics where they do know something's up. I don't know how that works. But there's very big fat evidence that when people pray for other people, it completely improves their life, right? It makes a huge difference in how they live, how they exist. And that is the same stuff. Everything that you are offering to anyone else, everything that you are offering to yourself, basically the same. And so you're filling the entire vessel of you with this benevolence. Right? So, I very often don't go straight into metta. Don't go directly into talking about love or kindness. Because it turns out that people actually have quite variable responses to some of these words. And I thought I would open up the discussion a little bit just by offering a few suggestions or a few questions and asking you to reflect on it and come back with your own thoughts and feelings on this. So I think at this point we all know what doing metta is. We all know about the phrases where you offer yourself loving kindness, you offer yourself may I be safe, happy, healthy, whatever set of phrases works for you. And then we do that for an easy case, a person or being that is very, very simple and easy to give care to. We do that for someone that is neutral to us, someone we see on the bus, someone we see at the market. And then we either expand outward to include everyone, or we move into doing metta for someone who is difficult for us, right? And that can be quite difficult practice in and of itself. And for some people, it's completely flipped. For some people, they just have a very, very hard time offering themselves loving kindness. One of these places where the practice just splits people right down the middle. So, I'll open up the discussion with a couple of questions about what metta actually is. So one version of it is certainly repeating the phrases, and there are plenty of teachers out there who will tell you that repeating the phrases is simply a mechanical process that you do until something sort of quasi-mystical happens, and then the phrases begin doing you. And I can say with my own experience that I'm not so sure about that piece, but I have gone out and done metta for some long period of time, and out in public and also on retreat. And the nature of what happens between my ears on any given day isn't particularly inspiring. My thinking patterns tend to be fairly repetitive. They often lean in towards being kind of negative, or there's nothing particularly great or creative going on most of the time. It takes a considerable amount of effort for me to pull together and do something better than that. But just repeating the phrases over and over again replaces a bunch of that, or it gives me this other anchor to land in, right? So that at least for a fraction of the day, what's happening inside my head, inside my heart, is actually quite nice compared to what is usually there. But metta is not simply saying the phrases. The phrases are a tool. We deploy the tool partly to generate this feeling, this sense of metta as it happens internally. And so we could easily say that metta is a feeling. We could also say that metta is an intention or an aspiration. There are a few things. And I'm just curious to hear what folks actually experience with metta. What do you feel, or what do you think it is? And there is no wrong answer here. I think the most important part of this is that you feel safe and trusting and so forth. So, what is metta?
Using the phrases or talking about it helps along the path, but it's the direct experience of it that you can't impart that to somebody else. You have to then go back and talk around about it, and basically the props are walking sticks that help you move in that direction, and at some point you can let go of the walking sticks and correct the experience. I'm not sure if it's describable.
I definitely like the part about not being able to impart it to someone else. I think you can definitely make it easier, but you can't make it happen. What do you think, Angela?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it feels like I'm just holding everything a little more softly. There are no hard edges. There's no there's an openness and softness is what I will say. It's open and forgiving. It's open and acceptable. Open and just open.
Mm.
And soft as well. It's not so maybe it's I'm less defensive when I'm feeling kindness.
Yeah.
So whatever's coming at me, I'm not like oh, it's gonna harm me. I'm like open and soft to whatever is showing up. People, things, weather, whatever. I think that's the sense, my feeling sense of what I feel when I'm in that state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And Miley, do you want to chime in?
I'm quite new to metta practice, so I haven't practiced outdoors and just a few times during meditation. So yeah, there's this kind of melting sensation around probably the heart area or center. The most difficult for me, I can't do it right now, so far, is to do metta with a difficult person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But everything you described, earlier was so beautiful. From the teachings to the concrete example of going out to the farmer's market and looking at the carrot and the benevolence term was very, very new or opening, striking for me today.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just to tie this back in. Let's see, where did I write this? Right. Just to tie it back in a little bit. It can be particularly useful. So a lot of standard mindfulness training is predicated on this idea where you become aware of something, you develop a sensitivity to it, and then you develop non-judgmental relationship with whatever's happening. And over the past, I'd say 2 decades, particularly in the US, in Canada and the West, the emphasis on mindfulness has been very strongly oriented towards this non-judgment piece. Okay, and let's see, how did I phrase this? If we can come into a more open, non-judgmental relationship with our proto-emotions, the Vedana, we are less likely to fall into dissatisfaction with our experience and less likely to tumble into constriction and this sort of self-creation and so forth. It is just as valid to replace non-judgment with, if we can come into an open and actually abundant loving relationship with whatever's happening, with our moment-to-moment experience. And the substantial difference that I see there is it is quite possible to toil away with a vipassana practice or an awareness practice, mindfulness practice, and have that practice be kind of dull, right? So if you're nodding out, if you're falling asleep, if you're having difficulty getting excited about doing this, right? If you're or if you find that you're just spaced out. I mean, I can't tell you how many days I sat on retreat, just gone really far. You know, by the end of a 10-day retreat, there were times when the main thing that seemed to have changed was that my fantasies got really juicy, like high def. And one of the things that changed my practice, and I think is valid for many people, not necessarily everybody, is to come into this practice of mindfulness, awareness of the body, of the Vedana, of the constructs of mind, so forth, with non-judgment as baseline, as the sort of the lowest hurdle. But see also, if it's possible, that as we cultivate this loving kindness, if we can actually match our experience with loving kindness, if we can bring that level of energy and engagement, right? And I find that a practice that is sort of languishing or just sort of coasting but not really going anywhere, you can really pump it up. You can change how you engage practice, and things that sounded kind of far out suddenly start happening, right? So that is my that's my pitch, and we'll continue to talk about metta for a while. Keep bringing it back into context, but that you would continue to practice, that you would continue to be happy, and that it would continue to work for you. So I try to give you the tools that I can. So thank you very much once again for being here. I'm always grateful that you've come, and that grateful for your practice. Great.
Thank you, Dad.
All right, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.